After 15 years of talk therapy, I found myself in an abusive relationship. It's been 3 years since I left, and I'm thriving, and I want to share my experiences that I know you can learn from to empower yourself to walk the life of your wildest dreams. Welcome to the Fierce Tart Podcast, where I explore the transformative power of healing and finding creativity so you can step into your unknown journey. Lindsay here, and this month's theme is healing at any age. You can read every self-help book and still repeat the same cycles until you realize your adult problems are actually childhood patterns on replay. So I'll give you a little background, some personal work background, and then more of my trauma background to lead into why I'm so interested in starting this podcast. Was always an artist as a child. I grew up very interested in creating and making things and living in a little fantasy world. And I was very much introverted, very shy. I had a lot of creative passion. I did end up going to art school. I went to undergrad art school, and then I got my master's degree also in fine arts. And I then went on to teach college for 7 years. So I taught at the college level, and I had my daughter, and I was laid off. After that, I started a baby shoe business when my daughter was a few months old. I found a pattern of some cute shoes, and I wanted to make them for her. Then I decided, maybe I could actually do this and build a business because I was no longer teaching. So I was kind of trying to figure out what the heck I was going to do with my life. And I started a baby shoe business. And that was mildly successful, actually, mildly successful. Let's just put it this way. I knew that that would not be a forever career. That was something temporary, and I could use my creative talents and learn how to build and run a business. So I did that for about 4 years. And when I abruptly wanted to quit doing it, I ended up getting a job at Starbucks because I really didn't know what I was going to do, but I didn't want to be making baby shoes anymore. And I was working insane hours. For a while, I had a little bit of help. Essentially, I needed to start from scratch. And I got a job at Starbucks that ended up leading me to do some Reiki healing, Reiki training to be a Reiki healer through an association from Starbucks. And I went and did that, knowing that I also was not going to become a Reiki healer, but I wanted the healing tools. I was always interested in healing tools. So from the Reiki, I ended up just quitting all jobs where I worked for somebody else. And I started traveling around the Midwest area, doing arts festivals and just making my paintings. And I wanted to live 100% off of my own talents and my own skills. And I've been doing that since 2018. So I'm in my 7th year of just being an entrepreneur and taking it to new levels with this podcast. Now that I can see what I'm really into, the person that I've become. Now I have a vegan baking business, and I still do art. I still do commissions, and I'm developing my own tools. And I also stepped into the role of coaching and being an intuitional counselor to help others through their trauma due to the amount of trauma that I suffered all throughout my life. Small backstory on that, just so you can get an understanding of what I've been through. Adopted at birth, mixed parents in the early 80s. So not only adversity towards being abandoned by my parents, but also adversity towards being a mixed race child at a time where not that many people were mixed, at least nobody that I was seeing. No one on television was mixed. I think maybe besides Lisa Bonet. And when was that, in the late 90s? I don't know, mid 90s? Somebody put it in the comments. Anyways, Lisa Bonet is the first woman that I recall that did not appear to fit into one or the other category. So that was also traumatic for me to grow up at a time when everybody was putting labels and separating camps, and we still do this. I don't jump on this bandwagon usually due to how I was raised and feeling like I did not fit into any of these camps, but it's still done today. So anyways, born in Ohio in the early 80s to a mixed race couple. When they moved in to the nice area that they moved into, for sale signs went up everywhere. So that's just kind of setting the stage for when I entered this incarnation. I have been definitely gifted in the arts, which has helped and also hindered. It's created multiple roadblocks. People still don't understand the idea that when you're gifted, a lot of times people don't want to associate with you. I don't think about the talent of like drawing. That to me is just a skill I've developed over lifetimes. And so I am able to do that still. I don't look at that as something to envy. But either way, it is something that is envied. If you have something that other people want, they usually don't want to be around you. So, dealt with issues on being a gifted individual. There are mental and emotional patterns that go along with that. And part of that is your programming in society. So, that is something for me that I did have to deal with. In terms of my traumas, I took a heavy sigh. It's one thing that I actually don't ever like talking about it. Nobody does. I don't even need to say actually. Nobody likes talking about it. I do have molestation as a young child, boys, older men being very interested in me at a young age. And I did not know how to process. And so attention coming at me, been through sexual harassment when I was in high school, being called names, driving down the street and shouting sexual obscenities at me as I'm trying to walk to work because I'm too young to drive. So this is when I'm 14, 15, being put into a sexual environment as a teenager, which was just around boys. And then hearing all the locker room talk, and I'm in this environment that doesn't feel safe. I'm being objectified. They're talking about my body parts. I feel exposed. I don't feel safe going to work. And this is, again, before I could even drive. I'm dealing with this. And when I said something, then I was punished. This is when they were driving down the street shouting, "That's that girl. She told," shouting obscenities at me. And I just keep walking. That is trauma that I still carry. Having to hear obscenities shouted at me as a child. I still carry that. Going such a long time, my traumas led me to spend like most of my 20s single and feeling like I was complete trash. Nobody wanted me. Nobody was coming for me. Everyone I knew was married, had kids, just had something very stable except for me. And when the situation arose for me to have the opportunity to be in a relationship entering into my 30s, when I got pregnant, not on purpose, I just entered into that. And so then for my 30s, just extremely painful, two very painful relationships that have made it hard for me to look at a man and think that they can be safe. And this includes my last relationship where I was so demolished and beat down. And when I finally had the courage to leave, I couldn't separate from this person. I had to continue living with them. And I have been supporting us financially because as a people pleaser, I will take care of it. I'll do it. If it's put to me, I'll get it done. And there became a point to where I was a shell of a person. That relationship left me so broken and so confused on life. I usually pray to die. And when I had nothing left, that's when my ex started making all the money because I couldn't. I got them clients with my last bit of anything I had left in me. And then my partner used the money against me and forced me to have sex with him for several months in order for him to pay the bills so me and my children could have a place to live. Doesn't matter the whys of me being in that scenario. It's easy for people to come in and say, well, why would you do that? That sounds stupid. Just say no. And I think it's easy to say no when you're emotionally healthy and have not been in a decade worth of extreme trauma. But I did the best that I could with the tools that I had and with what I had at my disposal. So I allowed this person. I go back and forth on this, to be honest. Allow, not allow. Because when I actually told people that this was happening, this is when I was still living with him. People really freaked out. It was put to me, that's rape. I said, no, it's not rape. Because I know him. Because we've already slept together. That's not rape. And it's taken me, I don't know, 3 years to realize that when you say no and you keep saying no, even if eventually you lay down, you've still said no. Just because I wasn't restrained, kicking and screaming. I said no, and I even repeated because I knew that there would come a point when this would come out, even though he said, I know you're not going to tell anybody. because I was so ashamed of myself. And he knew the shame that I felt by just not leaving, not leaving. So he said, I know you won't tell. And so I laid there and let him do his business. And then when he would go take a shower, I would cry and I would ask to be saved. But the only person that could save me was myself, was me saying no. And this time, you can't do anything to hurt me. Because people ask why I didn't say no. And the reason why I didn't say no was because I had two children. I had two children and no money because I was so destroyed after working, having my own businesses, being an entrepreneur, being self-motivated every day, getting up. Okay, where am I going to get my money to support my family? And not being able to do that anymore. And so I said, okay, I think that this seems like a trade that I can deal with. Because in the beginning, I said yes. I said, okay, I can do that. Okay, well, we're not together, but I'll continue to sleep with you if you're saying you'll pay these bills. I will do that. And after a little while, and after he was going through my phone and becoming scarier and scarier and having a problem with alcohol, becoming more violent, I bloodied his knuckles, punching what I don't know because I was in the other room. I just saw him come in and his hands ripped open and he's bleeding, scared for my life. But I said, I can make it through this. I can, and I will. I will for my kids. And even if people don't understand what I did, I understand it. A mother understands. But when I got so scared and tried a million and one ways to figure out how for us to separate before our lease was up, I just finally said, you don't have to pay. I don't care anymore. I don't care anymore. I'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. I'm always taken care of, even if it's not in the way that I think I'll be cared for. I always am. So I left. Well, I left emotionally and I left like physically in terms of our agreement. And he turned extremely, extremely scary. And it wasn't too long after that, he ended up, although pulling his punch because he could have killed me during an argument, he karate chopped me right here. I had my eyes closed, which is what I've been told by my lawyer. That was the only reason why he was not convicted, because I admitted that I had my eyes closed when I was hit. So I said, okay, I did my part. I said, that's the man that hit me. After all this, I've been a single mom, caring for my two kids, being an entrepreneur, baking wonderful treats, making art, and now helping people heal and helping people get through to the other side. The worst possible things you can imagine. I think back to when a partner prior to this partner, told me, no man will ever love you. And I carried that into my next relationship. And that was the only reason why I gave a man that ended up raping me and putting his hands on me the time of day. And the only reason why I got to all that was because my parents abandoned me at birth and I thought I was trash. And then I thought I was trash because of the color of my skin. And when my white boyfriends brought me home to their white mothers, they didn't want me there. But now I know that I have the power to want me. I don't need a boyfriend to want me, a husband to want me, my mother to want me, my father to want me, my children to want me. I just need to want me. And when I want me, that means that I make all my choices for my highest good. I deserve to be emotionally and physically healthy and happy. This podcast is based on traumas and healing from childhood traumas, healing from different events that lead to CPTSD, just through my own experiences. I started out saying that 15 years combined talk therapy, which started when I was young. I remember being very young saying, I need a therapist. I need a therapist. I need some outside source, not my parents, that I can talk to. And I'd always been interested in psychology and sociology. Even though I'm an artist and like a baker, I love to create things. I also like how the mind works and processes. Like I said, I had been 15 years in talk therapy, talking about all these things, thinking that I was like totally over them. But I realized I wasn't, and so took a deep dive and went into that. I have developed a couple tools because I'm an artist. I found that I really love doing it, creating them. And I was like, wow, I feel like I could do this forever, make things, people use to help themselves feel better. And it's my art. I enjoy making it. And I just, could see myself helping people and creating things like for the rest of my life until I got old, which I don't plan to get old, but that's a different story. So, anyways, the traumas that I went through led me to create this podcast. And the podcast mission is to provide insight. It always goes back to specific childhood occurrences, usually from a parent. It could be from an outside person if you have an early molestation or abuse or like something like that, something extremely traumatic. So then you don't feel safe. I just am so fascinated about healing, the fact that we came here to heal from these things, and even more so, they're not happening to us, they're happening for us because we have contracts. We chose these things, whether, people have an understanding of that. I've also been researching that and we'll be getting into that throughout the podcast too, because it has definitely helped me in my healing journey and to, kind of live a life where I'm at peace, which doesn't mean being happy all the time. That's not possible. We have the ups and the downs for a reason. So provide insight and to simply teach healing methods that anyone can use. A lot of people don't have access to talk therapy, and I'm not a firm believer in talk therapy anymore. I don't think just, talking about issues, especially when a lot of times people, are not honest with their therapist to begin with. So everything's based on just fabricated life. So you're not honest, but the methods I can teach you, you can by yourself decide to hack these things out. You can, in the privacy of your own home, hack your own mind and create the life that you want by going back to these issues. They really, really shape us. I'll be getting into some of my, early shapings. One of them was that I was adopted. And when I look back on it now, I think being adopted is absolutely horrible. And I know that people are not going to like that, but being adopted, obviously, yes, it's probably better than being aborted. But on the other hand, the amount of soul trauma to be abandoned by your parents, I know that our souls chose this, and it's about self-acceptance. So, here I am. But really being adopted, I feel like, was the main thing that just led me to lead a life with partners that I didn't like. But I decided to do something about it, and I made a promise to my daughter, which was to show her real love between a man and a woman. That kind of just led me to know that it's time for me to be healed and not pass on my traumas, And so I know everyone can be able to access these healing methods because I've done it. I'm just an average person. I have big goals, though. I have big goals. And so I've been able to create these tools. Anyways, thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being interested in your own healing journey. And if it's not your thing, but even if it's not your thing, maybe it could be your thing, but just to grab a journal. If you decide to tune in, which I really hope that you do, tune in, follow on social media. I'll have links below. But anyways, grab a journal for these podcast sessions. And today, write down one thing you hope to gain from listening to this podcast series. What's one thing? Write it in the comments. On the next episode, I'll be discussing why healing childhood patterns is transformative at any age. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Make it a great week. I love you all. You've really made my day to be able to do this and to be able to help as many people as possible. That's my only goal besides taking care of my kids. So thank you. I'll see you guys next week.